In our Planning Commission meeting for February 2nd, 2023. Let's have a Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right, roll call. Pamela Gilmartin.
I'm here.
Okay, Eduardo Simononi.
Not sure.
Okay, Bob Essay. He may join us shortly. Michael Anderson.
Here.
Laura.
Yes.
It's a pleasure to see you. Christian Pico.
You can't see me here.
Michelangelo Lieberman, present. And Mark Schiffert. I think Mark will not be joining us tonight. And hopefully has a speedy recovery. So, does anyone have any objections to approving the minutes?
No.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
I second.
Okay. So we have kind of a packed agenda. I think we can probably run through it. Some of these topics I think we'll want to focus a little bit more on. I don't know if Alex Wallach is joining us tonight, but...
I'm here, Michelangelo.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry, I don't know if you... Yeah, no worries.
Great. Hey, Alex. It's great to have you. Okay, so do we have an update on Proposition 3 for the Affordable Housing Initiative? I'm assuming this is you, Alex.
Yeah, I believe that's with the trustees right now, and I think they've authorized that to move forward at their last meeting. I have to double check, but this is the proposal through BFJ, who did the comprehensive plan, to take a look at affordable housing potentially within the office district.
Okay, great. So it's with the trustees at this time, though.
Yeah, that's right. So they would probably be in contact with myself and also with the trustees about their study and their recommendations. But that work hasn't yet started, so not much to report there.
Okay, great. Does anyone have any questions for Alex? All right. Our fifth, this one's regarding the Sewer Wastewater Committee update. Paul Travis, I know he's not present with us, nor is DNB Engineering. So I think we'll table this for the next meeting. Okay, updates on presentations with Village Planner. Okay, Alex, you're back on. So our first was the proposed zoning strategy to create an arts and culture overlay district. Any progress?
Right. Similarly, this is also with the trustees. I know they had a presentation at the trustees' last meeting.
Okay. And what about the RFP for the Architectural Historical Structures Reconnaissance Survey?
So that work is nearing its completion, and I believe the consultant is going to issue the draft report to the Architecture Review Board for comments probably within the next few weeks or so. That board will have an opportunity to make comments and edits and send that back to them before we send that back up to the state.
Will the Planning Commission have an opportunity to review it for comments?
I'm not sure at what point it will become public.
Okay.
Something I'll have to check with the Architecture Review Board.
Does anyone have any questions on this topic? You guys are more quiet than usual. Okay, so we have an update on the Village Building Department to accept town-issued home improvement contractor license. Status of the IMA.
Yeah, I reached out. This is something that I would handle through my office. It's something that would be through the village attorney. I sent a note to the village attorney just asking if there was any update on this, if this is something that that they're working on.
Okay. And then...
Alex?
Go ahead.
Yeah, if I may ask, Alex, last time we also spoke about the landscaper licensing, which was removed at the village level, assuming an intermunicipal agreement between the town and the village for landscapers. If you remember, we spoke about that last month. Is there any updates on that that you know of? Is that part of the same request to village attorney?
Is this part of the same legislation that requires the town licensing agreement for home improvement contractors?
Yeah, it could probably fall under the same intermunicipal agreement. Agreed, yes.
Yeah, it would probably be something for the town attorney's office. We don't typically deal with landscaping in the building, landscapers, I should say, in the building department.
I understand that. Okay, so we'll, Michelangelo, we'll have to circle back with the village administrator to see where council is on that.
Okay. All right. Make a note of it. Alex, I have here also the review of the demolition permit requirements and C&D recycling efforts. Has there been any progress here?
I don't know if that was my item.
Oh, okay. That should be on our list as a planning commission. I know this is something that the mayor has expressed interest in. We may want to move that into some of one of the planning commissioners championing that motion. Now, but at our last meeting, Alex, I did ask about and I think it's not within our agenda, but if you don't mind me bringing it up, the New York stretch code. And we were also hoping to get a little bit, some clarity if it was ever formally adopted.
Yeah, I think I have a note. I had to follow up with the building inspector if that's something that was adopted.
Okay. I appreciate that. Thank you. Okay, so we have our next on our agenda is the updates on recent efforts of the Planning Commission. First up is our senior task force. I guess Pamela and Laura, this is you.
Yeah. I just want to say I went to the village website, and they do have, if you put in the search option on the website, not the menu, but the search option, and put in senior services, there is a substantial amount of stuff that comes up as a guide. My only comment right now is that when you go into the village website, there is a menu button, and they have government, and they have community, and they have services, and they have something else. I would suggest that in the services subcategory, that senior services are listed. Right now, only thing that is listed is Public Works and, I don't know, 2 other things, and I can't remember them off the top of my head. But just to make it easier for seniors, that they would go into the main menu button, go down to services, hit that button, and that senior services would come up there. That's the only thing I have to suggest, really, at this time. I know that the last trustees meeting, Trustee Manger and Trustee Brown said they were leading this effort, and that Judy Johnson was present at that meeting, and they are reviewing certain candidates to fill out a full senior committee. And that's all I know at this time, unless, Pam, you know something I don't know.
I do not.
So, Laura,
But my recommendation for the village website, and I guess this would go to Kathy Sweeney, would be to be able to put senior services under the services submenu under the main menu. That's all right now. That's all.
okay, that sounds like a fair recommendation. Do you want to put that in writing, and then maybe we'll send it to Kathy? And
Sure, I can do that.
yeah, you send it to me, and I'll forward it to Kathy and maybe
Okay.
Roy. You said Roy or Trustee Manger
Trustee
was?
Manger.
Trustee Manger. Okay.
And Trustee Brown.
Okay, those are the 2.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, Christian, would you like to present the Tree City? Or update us on Tree City?
I have no updates on it, no.
Okay. Where did we leave off again, if you wouldn't mind reminding?
So the application is with the DEC in Albany that is reviewing for and in behalf of the Arbor Foundation.
Okay,
It'll take several months before they check all the applications, where the deadline was December 31st, and I've gotten in touch with them. They said it looked complete. They have it, and they will deal with it. So I'm giving them a little bit of space, but probably by the end of February, I should knock at their door again.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. But it could be a couple months.
Yes, sir.
Okay, real estate task force. Who is leading this?
That's Mark and I.
Okay.
Nothing's been done of late. We have one property that's in the village trustees' hands. Mark and I met with the owner, with trustee Aresta, to try to work something out, and that was the property on Hampton Road and Elm Street that we've been trying to get for quite some time. How far it's gone from there, I don't really know.
I mean, what's the purpose of this real estate task force? I mean, what's
The
the,
mayor had asked us as a planning commission to look at village properties where we might be able to buy with CPF funds.
I see.
This is CPF?
Yeah, CPF.
Funds, and
So it really should be,
that's really the only.
it really should be titled CPF funds purchases in the village instead of real estate task force.
So as of now, that's all we've really have to report. Pam, you were on it also. Do you have anything to say? You had a couple of properties? Nothing
No.
came of it, right?
Yeah, nothing came of it. They weren't interested in working out anything but the highest price.
Right. You may want to, I mean, we have a new CPF, I don't know her title at this point, but director, for lack of a better title, Jackie Fenlon. You might want to touch base with her and kind of develop a relationship so she knows, that we're working on this and, that they could check in with us if they require a recommendation or a referral.
Okay, and her name again?
Jackie Fenlon,
Fenley?
Fenlon.
And she's at Southampton Town Hall?
Well, she's at the CPF office, so she heads the office now.
Okay, great. I'll give her a call and introduce myself to her.
Yeah, I think that's a developing a relationship with that office isn't a bad idea.
Right.
Okay, so I have the term limit task force. Pam, are you able to speak on this?
Well, I hadn't expected to. I expected Mark to have been there, but I can. I can with maybe some help from Chris, because I know he's on top of it. We had a number of meetings to discuss term limit and salaries and the and how often we ought to hold an election. And they were trying to,
Does she know about it?
well, let me skip to that. We
Pam,
have a suggestion.
if I
Oh,
just want to ask you, did you see the outline of recommendations that Mark sent
Yeah.
today?
yes,
Okay.
I have that in front of me. I just hadn't read it 1,000 times to give a presentation because I thought Mark would be doing this. But, well, everybody has the recommendation,
Mm-hmm.
so, but we want to talk about it, I guess, because do we have, I can't see anybody. Do we have public there?
We have one person from the public.
Okay. Because we would
You say.
like, our recommendation was to make the trustees' term limit to be trustee to be elected for 4 years at a time. He could serve twice, and then if he was to run for mayor, that would give him, he could serve a third thing, which would give him 12 years. Same thing with the mayor, except for the mayor's terms would be 2 years each. And the mayor would probably arrive at his running for mayor by being through having been a trustee. I'm so bad at this.
You're doing great,
You're
Pam.
doing fine.
Yep.
We don't want, what it would do would be to stop anybody from serving more than 12 years. And we wanted to bring having the elections every 2 years instead of having them every year, because it costs us money to have them, and we have to get volunteers, and it's just a lot of work. And half the time, the person's in office, they're out, looking for votes. So we'd like to make the elections 2 years apart. The next group of trustees that we would vote for would only have terms of 3 years, so that we could just get on to a every 2 year thing, and everything would be even.
So,
Last.
Pamela, was it,
Uh-huh.
did they consider the idea of the mayor also having a 4-year term? Or was that,
We considered it. We kind of liked it better with the mayor having a 2-term. However, we're just we're not making we're presenting something for the trustees to look at and decide. This isn't our decision. This is trying to put things together. They could turn around and say they wanted the mayor to have 4 years. Our recommendation, well, let me say, I shouldn't say that our recommendation is that he have 2. We kind of were split on how we felt on the subject.
okay,
Some thought that it could be 4 years, some of us thought it was 2. We weren't strongly enough in any direction, that we just kind of thought, we're just putting it out there, making a list of things that the trustees have to look at.
and
And
Chris,
then
sorry, go ahead, Pam.
the next thing that we came to was the salaries. Now, the mayor makes $25,000 a year, and the trustees make 20. We recommended that the mayor's salary go up to 30, and the trustees go up to 25.
Oh, 20.
The record.
It was 15 presently
Oh.
and up to 20.
Right.
It's-
So $5,000 raise for everybody. But with giving them the raise, we then looked at the insurance, the health insurance. And currently now, if you have served in the government in Southampton Village for 5 years, over 5 years, you get insurance for life, which is an awful lot of insurance, an awful lot of money, because your family is completely covered too, currently. So our recommendation was that we drop the insurance to include only the person who's either the trustee or the mayor. And if they would want to add their own family to it, then they can do it the same way you can do it any other company, and they would pay for it. But there would no longer be insurance for life. You're in office, you have insurance for the primary person. That's it. And again, the trustees are going to look at that and what they're going to think of it. I'm not quite too sure. And I just lost my list. Phone closed on me. Let me see. And I think that is the gist of everything that we came up with to propose to the trustees and the mayor.
Okay, Christian, do you have anything to add?
Well, first I want to say that I know this task force met several times. There was a lot of debate and challenges between the group, and that's really the intent. And a lot of good recommendations came out of it. The group consisted of Pam and Mark from the Planning Commission, but also Bob Lohman, Walter Dean, and Susan Steinhardt, and a great group that's come up with great recommendations. What Pam said earlier looks very much like the same process Mineola went through in 2013. And the Mineola transition model is something very interesting for the village to consider, which is exactly in line with what this group independently, from looking at this, had come up with. So I thought that was comforting. In terms of healthcare, I understand what Pam is saying, and certainly this is an issue for the village holistically. And a recommendation certainly would be to have the budget and finance to look at this for village employees, including trustees.
No, thank you. It's what action, so that's the action that the planning commission should be taking right now, is voting on this recommendation?
I think it's just voting to send it along. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
All right, so,
Nora?
Pam, would you like to make that motion?
Oh, goodness, all those fancy words.
With no discussion?
well, we could continue the conversation, or Pam, you can make a motion, or,
I just want to interject, this is really wonderful what y'all did, and I understand that was difficult in coming to broad consensus. So, but ultimately, it does rest with the Board of Trustees, and hopefully regarding some compensation, especially health insurance, results in policy moving forward. And so I encourage the Board of Trustees to look at this, and also to hold several public meetings regarding this recommendation.
thank you, Laura. Does anyone else have any comments?
Yeah. I mean, I reviewed this, and I appreciate the fact that we want to have elections every 2 years, which I can go along with. I'm not that favorable to increase the terms from 2 years to 4 years, though. I think I sent an email a few weeks ago after our last meeting saying that we could have elections every 2 years, but maintain a 2-year a 2-year term just by extending by 1 year the the trustees and the mayor, for give them a 3-year term, and then all five trustees and the mayor would be on a 2-year schedule. So we can keep the 2 years and have a 2-year term. That's my feeling. I just don't feel comfortable giving 4-year terms. Also, I don't think there should be term limits at this point. It's not like that we have so many candidates coming along, and if the candidates that we have and the trustees that we have are working out well, why limit them, at a certain point and have them move on? So I'm okay with no term limits, but I definitely would like to see the terms not be over 2 years. As far as the compensation, I can go along with the increase of $5,000. It's not a lot, especially if we're going to reduce the insurance. I think that's really the sticking point. And in the end, also, I'm not too sure this should be decided by the trustees or the mayor, because they're going to be deciding their own salaries and their own terms. It seems to me it would be a conflict of interest. This really should be going for a referendum and be decided by the village.
I think that's probably also spelled out in the code as to who decides the salary, and they probably have it within their purview to do that. But they're probably also relying on us to give a recommendation, so that informs their decision, to avoid bias and avoid this conflict of interest. Christian, do you have a comment?
Sure. Pam, I know your group has done some benchmarking with other villages, and I think it would be great if you could take just a couple of minutes, if you remember them, how those are benchmarked, so that, in essence, these numbers were not pulled out of thin air. You did a lot of work benchmarking with other communities. Do you have those numbers? You want to share them with us?
I have some, still in my head. Should I mention them? Should I use the name of the towns? I guess.
Sure.
Yeah, I think so. It contextualizes the figure.
Okay. West Hampton's mayor works 5 days a week, and he gets paid $34,000 a year and has absolutely no insurance. The trustees there make about 12,000 a year. Sag Harbor is a lot less, but they do in money, salaries, but they do have insurance, but it's not for life, never for life. Those were the two that came closest to being around us, you know, in numbers and stuff. But West Hampton was a real surprise, because that's a huge area. I mean, we're just talking about a little village, and they have a much bigger area. Nobody gets paid as much or has insurance like we do.
Well, I
So-
mean, one could argue that a $35,000 salary in lieu of insurance versus a $20,000 salary is a pretty big difference.
Well, if the mayor's the one that makes 34, and it's only gonna be, that's only 4,000 more than our mayor, but our mayor's not required to be at work 5 days a week.
Well, I would say obviously a lot of work takes place outside of the office in, 2023, and I'm sure the mayor is receiving phone calls at all times.
Yeah, but it's not a full-time job,
Right.
but it is in West Hampton.
So my only issues with these recommendations are I think we have a difficult time finding candidates to step up, and I think
Mhm. I agree with that.
and I think we want to have packages that are enticing. And I think it's only getting more difficult, and we've only gotten more expensive out here. So that would be my opinion on this. That
Can I give my opinion on
Sure.
that too? The way I see it, all of these trustees and the mayor already have jobs. It's not
Yeah.
like they're looking for a job and need a salary. These are people that are coming up to bat like we are. It's really as a volunteer type thing to be in the village. They don't do it for the money. They do it because they're involved in the village and they want to get things done and they want to make sure things are done correctly. But they're not doing it for the money, so I don't think we should use compensation to entice anybody.
well, I would disagree. I don't say they're not necessarily doing it for the money or not doing it for the money, but it allows people to do it. So there are groups of people who may have to do second jobs or have a second career that would not be able to take this position because if it offered less, right? The younger people.
I don't know. I don't
There
see
is not just one demographic in this community, despite what most people drive. There are multiple
Yeah,
demographics.
Yeah, but it's not a full-time job.
No, it's not, but
part-time.
Nah.
there's a compensation. So I guess you can make a motion to, we'd vote on this, and then it would go to the village board, or we can continue to discuss it.
I'm not quite sure what the dates are, but it seemed Mark was very concerned that we get this passed on tonight in order, so that the trustees can look at it, so that it could be a referendum in June. There's certain days and stuff that have to go by or whatever before it can be on a referendum. And, I mean, certainly we can continue to discuss it and everything can stay the way it is for another year, no question. But if we felt that it was important to get it to the trustees, I think we need to be doing, making our own vote and pushing it on to the trustees.
I think that we could move this to be considered by the trustees with the caveat that the planning commission may continue to review, and also not just the planning commission, but the task force may continue to review. I think we could add that caveat.
I think if you're going to propose this, you should propose more alternatives. I proposed an alternative myself right now to consider, instead of having a 4-year term, to have a 2-year term with elections every 2 years. That's not in this proposal. So there's different points of view, and not all the points of view are being expressed right now.
Well, that's what I mean, Eduardo, so that.
So you can't
with the
send this
With the
forward.
caveats,
You
we
can't,
would,
you can't send
we
this
would
forward.
continue to review.
Yeah, well, you can't send this forward unless you have the review done and more, let's say, more points of view expressed in it.
So do we want to make a motion to table it, or do we want to make a motion to,
I'm
Chris-
not of that mind.
The trustees can, change it into 2 years. I mean, just because we suggested 4, we're just suggesting.
Yeah, but
We're not-
nobody suggested
we
the
don't-
2 years.
Well, especially if they have public meetings about this, this is gonna be
Right.
brought forward.
Michael, do you have any?
Especially by you, Eduardo, if past history means anything.
I think it should be part of the proposal, though. So
Well, what
we can
I
consider it.
think time is of the essence here, and I think what Laura and Pam's trying to get at is that we need to make a proposal tonight so that we can carry this forward to the trustees, so it can get on their agenda and something be done before June, the June election cycle. Because when I was made aware of not so much the increase in pay, which I don't mind, but when I was made aware of the insurance that these trustees have and the mayor has for life, I was really surprised and floored, actually, that I've never even heard of a policy with a lifetime benefits like
Yeah.
that.
That was way back when, yeah.
Yeah.
Rather hard, I think.
I know, so I think, Eduardo, you make a good point. The last meeting, I did suggest 3 years as a compromise, but I think the group went back and discussed the 3 years and didn't come up with it. Actually, your proposal of 3 years for everybody is not a bad idea.
Yeah, I actually like that.
Yeah,
number.
I think if it was every 3 years, there was an election for all 6 members, I think that would be,
Totally.
to be fun, that's a
Es-
fine idea.
Especially if the logic is we don't want them running for election every year. Well,
Right.
that logic still applies to the mayor.
Right.
So
Yeah.
we solve the mayor's issue.
But what I was saying was to have it every 2 years with 2-year terms. That is, 2 of the trustees would have their term extended by 1 year so that everybody would be falling on the same year in the next election cycles.
Right.
Not making 3 years.
No, I understand. I think Michael and I, and some of the others, like the idea that we don't want our elected officials spending 50% of their time in office running for
Right.
for the next year.
Right.
I'm all right with that.
And that the idea of a third term would,
But I think if we
Reduce that.
pass some sort of resolution,
Shoot
like-
that
as
for
Laura
here.
said, and keep working on it, that way we get it to the trustee's desk and say, recommend, more recommendations possibly to follow, something like that. But at least they're aware of it and we can get something done possibly by
I still
June.
think this should be modified. It doesn't take that long to modify a proposal, and we also can have a meeting in the next week or two in order to finalize it and send a proposal that has more information on it and more alternatives, including the 3-year
Robin?
term. And I don't think we're gonna be running into a time limit for the next election by doing that.
Laura, you have something to say?
I'm gonna stick with what I said and with Michael. I understand, I think, Eduardo, reasonably, that your feelings and your thoughts will come out in a public meeting. And that may lead to a rewrite or whatever. I believe that they will come out in a public meeting. That's why I strongly suggest that this not just be solved in-house, in camera, but with the public and also with a referendum, absolutely.
Okay, so I need a motion, and if I don't have a motion, then we'll move on.
So would you like me to make the motion? I'm happy to do that.
Let Michael Anderson make the motion.
I'll let Christian make the motion, or Pam. Actually, Pam's the one that should make the
I'll
motion.
make the motion to table this to
But
another
I'm
meeting.
gonna pass on to Chris.
Okay. Christian, can you make the motion, please?
Yes, so I'd like to make the motion that we take the recommendation of the task force written as before us and move them on to the Board of Trustees for their review and discussion. Do I have a second?
Second.
No, no,
All in favor?
No,
Well, all in favor?
No.
How many?
no.
Oh,
Aye. What's the matter?
It's not complete, Christian.
so we have how many, all right, all those opposed? Since I can't get let's go with first, all in favor.
Aye.
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 Okay, 3 in favor. All opposed?
nay,
Nay.
As
and
as proposed, no.
Yeah, I would agree. So we're at a 3-3?
so I probably want to
Well,
wait
what
for March.
proposal, Laura, would you make?
Well, the one that Michael was talking about, that's why I wanted him to make the motion. Because he
Which
said
Michael?
it, that we're gonna move it forward, but we're gonna continue to review.
That was you.
Right.
So, Christian, is it possible that we could add language that would recommend that this process is still ongoing, that we'd like the opportunity to have additional input?
Absolutely. I'd like to add that to the motion I made. And with that addition, do I have a second?
Second?
Yes, I'll second it.
All in favor? Aye.
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 All opposed?
I'm opposed only because I think that the proposal itself can be modified in order to take into consideration all the opinions so that the trustees can have a chance to take that into consideration without waiting for people walking up and they having to discuss it at a meeting. They should have this in front of them ahead of time, not after the fact.
All right, thank you, Eduardo. So it passed us to head to the village, and we appreciate that language being added to the amendment, or to the piece, or suggestion, recommendation. Okay, next is Deer Management Task Force. Michael Anderson, I think
Yes,
that's you.
that's
I
me.
guess I've just given you some information as well from the town.
You sent me some information, but I have good news. At the last trustee meeting, they did pass a resolution to sign the contract with Suffolk County Deer Management for their program. Just have a few caveats here. On January 18th, I went to Suffolk County, their Deer Management's building. He's located in West Hampton. I toured his complex, his classrooms, the settings for trainees, his refrigerator and freezer units. At that time, we discussed, well, he had asked for additional money from the village for tree stands, because that's how they do their hunting. But I was able to speak to him and said that the original contract was going to have to be honored with no additional money for tree stands, and he took that out of the contract. We discussed past problems that he had working in the village, notably with village employees. With that said, I had a meeting with Public Works Steve Phillips on the 27th to go over with him the plan that the village has now in place. And Steve was great, said there would be no problem. He and I will be keeping in touch if there are problems, and there shouldn't be. The problems was stealing of his stands when it was about 3 or 4 years ago. He is in the process of putting up a target area map. He has been out surveying the village properties, trying to figure out the best place to place the stands. That he has not gotten back to me yet, but we've had several meetings with different village businesses, one in particular on the 25th where deer bed down constantly, continually, and we approached the owner of the business, who is extremely happy that we approached him because it's such an issue that he was going to hire somebody privately, actually, to take care of it. So he was extremely happy with the village that we have this program now in place. So as I said, the village okayed the trustees okayed the contract last meeting. Michael Testori, who owns the Suffolk County Deer Management, since hunting season is now over, the end of January, he's gonna go to the DEC to get nuisance permits to continue the hunt. He told me that they don't give him a bunch of tickets at a time, but he can keep going back once his tickets are done. If they give him 5 or 6 at a time, he can go back after those 5 or 6 deer are 5 or 6 tickets are done, then he can go back for more. And I see that Mark has something on here about a presentation by that DEC woman. It was going to be, did you see where that is, Michael?
I don't have it on my
Yeah,
copy,
it's on-
actually.
it's on-
Oh, yeah, I do. Which I'm assuming,
It's next March. I
Okay.
think the DEC lady that issues those permits is going to present in front of the board because Mark had asked her to come.
great.
So that's it.
Well, it's good to see some progress. Okay, our next is the Mobility and Transportation Task Force, which is me. The Trust for Public Land and the county are in full steam ahead with applying to the USDOT RAISE grant for $5 million. This grant is going to be a regional bike path and lane and contemplate a plan around, it's going to be a plan for regionally for biking from Riverhead through the North Fork and through the South Fork to Montauk. They're asking for a $1 million match as per the grant. And the towns, the county, East Hampton, Southampton, Suffolk County, as well as Trust for Public Land, are hoping to fill that gap. It sounds like the town of Southampton is actually interested in pursuing this. East Hampton will be voting on it, I believe, next week. I think they're asking from us a letter of support. So is that something that we'd like to entertain? It's at this time, they're not asking for any financial commitment from the villages. So we would just be going along for the ride and be able to perhaps benefit from them creating a plan that's at 90% design. So our next step post the plan would be to potentially go out to RFP for construction, or again, rely on the county to pursue a regional construction operation. Does anyone have any questions on this?
Yeah, thank you for this update, Michelangelo. I think we definitely should have a letter of support, and in the letter of support, given that quite clearly Southampton Village is geographically within the path of the South Fork, and they will be going through the village, as opposed to County Road 39, that will include Hill Street, probably making a left onto Windmill Lane. I'm not sure where they're gonna go next, but this is of great relevance for us.
Absolutely.
We should be part of that plan.
Wonderful. Okay, so I'll make a motion for us to have a letter of support. Anyone second that?
I'll second
I'll
that.
second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Wonderful, aye.
I,
Okay, great. So I will speak with Mark about getting a letter to them, and I'll keep you all posted, but it's moving quite quickly. They hope to have that application in by February 28th, and then it'll probably be a long delay between now and when we hear from the federal government. But because it's a regional plan, I think we have a strong chance.
Can you share a draft with us, please,
Sure.
of the letter?
Yeah, I'd love to see the path, yeah.
Yeah, well, the path right now is pretty conceptual, and it does rely heavily on LIPA and the PSEG lines, which, again, a regional approach is basically the only way we're ever going to get the utilities to sit at the table.
There is up in North Country, there was an old rail line that used to run, I think, from Albany all the way over to Saranac Lake and beyond. And that rail line has been extinguished, basically, but next to it, the powers that be have instituted bike trails.
So I'm so glad you brought that up. It refreshed my memory. So this is,
Rails to trail.
well, this is the Empire State Trail Program, and
That's right.
they put in about 700 miles of trail connecting Buffalo, Plattsburgh to Albany to Manhattan. They forgot about Long Island. So Trust for Public Land has actually stepped in with the Long Island Greenway, and Phase 1 is Nassau and Western Suffolk. Phase 2 is us. And so that's what this plan is about. So thank you for bringing that up, because I clearly forgot to mention it.
Yeah, it's great.
Okay.
So I have a question. LIPA, why do they have to come to the table? What is it that,
Well, they have right-of-ways that are off-road. So if
Right.
we were to cut through, let's say, North Sea and Noyak,
right?
or along the LIRR line, that's how they come.
Okay.
It creates potential off and on-road opportunity, because it's the idea of on-road can be, there's a safety concern. But, so we'll see. And the hope is that this line, this from Riverhead to Montauk, it acts as a spine. And then all of these other projects can kind of branch off of it. And often, we're contemplating a bike route or bike path in Noyak or in Hampton Bays, but from where to where? From a hamlet to a park. Okay, but how do we connect it even more so? So this is a real wonderful opportunity in the town. They won $1 million grant connecting two parks, Red Creek and Good Ground Park, via bike lane, and they built it to the specs of the Empire State Trail in hopes that one day the Empire State Trail would expand to Long Island. Hopefully that day is coming. So I think this is really a great opportunity for an area that could really use some biking, especially to alleviate the traffic. Okay, so it's just to keep us on track, because we're running a little late. Updates in the village news. Do we have anyone or updates from the Liberty Development? I see here a letter to SHV Planning Board.
I
Okay,
don't know.
alrighty. I think this is still in the secret process with the FEIS, and there won't really be any more material until the FEIS is produced by the applicant. Update on workforce housing overlay. I think we spoke about that with Alex Wall. Is Alex still on the call? Okay. Possible creation of a business improvement district.
I'm here.
Oh, good. Alex, do you have any comments on either the workforce housing overlays? We spoke about that earlier.
Yep, that's right. That's the
Right.
office district proposal that's being done.
Okay.
I have a question for you, Alex, I'm sorry. When I saw the trustee meeting and Noah was presenting this, and he talked about the office district expanding their applicability to multifamily or workforce, but he mentioned something about special permit. Does that really have to be a special permit, or can we just expand the zoning framework of the office district?
So right now, what the zoning allows in the office district, you could get a special permit for one family, a special permit for two family, or a special permit for multifamily. And it's the same special permit, and there's no specific criteria about when any of those can be granted. And there's been some recent examples of those applications having been denied. So I think the idea, and it hasn't been fleshed out because the study hasn't been started, was that you could have perhaps a special exception for small scale multifamily and have very clear criteria in the code for what those would have to do to get approved for workforce anything. There may be other ways to do it as well, but that's one suggestion.
Well, I was just thinking, why can't you just expand the zoning guidelines to include multifamily or workforce housing or whatever? I mean, instead of the onus of some sort of strict special permit or spot zoning or exemption to zoning, why not just expand that zoning framework to include that in those districts?
You're talking about allowing it as an as-of-right use?
Yes.
That's a possibility that they might want to do. I think the idea was that they would want to have certain criteria you'd have to meet, and whether those are criteria that you meet to make it as of right, or whether our board determines if those criteria meet, that'll get fleshed out.
Well, isn't there criteria for multifamily already? I mean, isn't there existing
There's
criteria?
No, I believe the only criteria in the code are there's a generic set of special exception criteria that apply uniformly to all types of special exceptions. There's nothing specific to workforce housing or to multifamily. So I think the idea of the study was it would flesh that out a little bit more and come up with some specific standards.
Well, I think that I mean, I'm just gonna say this, to make it as easy as possible, it would be a way forward.
Sure. And I think the idea is that, right, it would be easy and it should be very predictable and clear as to what would be permitted.
Yes, yes, I agree.
Thank you, Alex. Next, I have the Business Improvement District. Does anyone have any comments or updates on this?
I think the Board of Trustees is looking at a plan that CMX Sammy did a while ago, or am I nuts? I don't know.
I'm not too sure. I think. Go ahead, Christian.
Yeah, Frank is supposed to present on that at the next VOT.
Okay, great.
Laura's right.
Okay, so I think we can table that till probably after that presentation. So I have here on the agenda the review of local laws passed in 2022. Does that ring a bell with Mark's?
I think that's new.
That's new. Okay, so we'll probably. It looks like the remainder of the agenda.
Michelangelo, can I just, there's an item that I asked to add to the agenda. It made it on the original one, but not on this one. So very quickly.
Sure.
This is something that our colleague Bob Esse, formerly an ARB member, had raised and asked us to have a look into, which is 116-40 penalty for offenses on the subject of building tear downs illegal.
Demolition.
Demolition, right. 11640 basically refers to Article 2 of Chapter 1, which is a generic way of dealing with an offense in the code. It's $2,000 and/or I think 15 days in jail, if I recall it. So I've had some discussions with the trustee liaison for the building department. I've had some discussions with the head of the ARB on this, the current head, new chair rather, and with Bob, and there are some ideas that we could put forward for editing 116-40. Before we dig into it, I'm asking the village clerk to give me the last edition and change to 116-40, which was local law 7-2020, and understand when that was changed. Why is it that they didn't address this? This is apparently something that's been on the table for ARB members for a better part of 2 decades and undealt with. So I got to figure out why it's been not dealt with. But the solutions are pretty simple, and it's not a monetary solution. They're better solutions that will make people think twice before doing a demolition without a permit.
I agree with you.
So I just wanted to tell the commission that I'm working on this with Bob Esse, and we're going to work with the chair of a couple of the land use boards and the building department, obviously Roy Stevenson, who's the trustee liaison to the building department.
Okay, that sounds like a good idea. I mean, you said 20. Well, how long ago was it last reviewed or last
2
amended?
decades?
Yeah.
So no, the last review, and I don't know what it was, and I'm asking Kathy Sweeney, village clerk, to give me local law 7-2020 that dealt with it. I'm trying to understand, but this has been well over 2 decades that the ARB has been complaining about this. Bob served there in the 90s and said it was a topic in the 90s, and we're in 2023, it's still not dealt with, and the current ARB chair tells me that he has some current issues on the topic, and he, like a lot of ARB members before him, would like to find a solution, and so we're going to work on it.
I'm glad to hear it.
I don't know why it's taking more than 20 years for us to figure it out.
Oh well, I'm glad you're working on it, though. If anyone can figure this out, it's you. So, thank you
Christian,
for.
just wanted to clarify. My understanding is that Bill Manger is the new liaison to the building department, unless I'm mistaken.
Oh. Okay.
That's fine. I'm sure he'll have the same opinion as Roy Stevenson does on the topic. I just need to have one trustee to champion this through the process.
Sure.
Okay. So I think at this point, unless there's anything else in this agenda that,
I'd like to make a couple of comments.
sure.
If I can go back to the deer management, I'd like to make some comments on that. During the last meeting, I was the sole member that opposed making a proposal that was given to the trustees. I understand it was approved, so, you know, I understand this going forward. However, I personally feel that we did not have any really substantive discussion on the matter to see what alternatives there are to the slaughter of Bambis. I feel very strongly
Bambi.
about this, and it's Bambis because when they kill the does and the little ones are with them, they gotta go too. So it's not a pretty thing. And with bows and arrows, they're not as deadly as firing guns, and some of them will be wounded and they'll be running away and going in the back of people's properties. I really don't want to see a wounded deer in the back of my property, so I feel very strongly against this whole program, or at least there should be considered other alternatives like surgical,
The sterilization.
surgical sterilization or other means. And today I also sent a study that was done that actually shows that surgical sterilization in the long term is less expensive and more effective than going out and
Right, I
killing
saw your
these
study.
Well, I think that, you know, you could probably institute, I mean, why does it have to be just one thing or the other? I mean, maybe
Correct.
there could be a two-pronged effort.
That's also has been done. That's also a way to reduce the number of killings and get better results. So I really don't think we had enough discussion on this. There's so much more that can be discussed.
So maybe at our next meeting, we can discuss this a little bit further. We can review what you sent out today
Okay.
about sterilization and kind of think about how else we can approach this. I'm not opposed to, you know, having more than one silver bullet to solve a problem. Okay, with that, does anyone have any other comments?
Mike, I'll just ask that when the board leaves, just to make sure that the lights are off and the doors of the building are locked behind you.
Okay.
Thanks.
You got it. So with that, I'll open up to the public. I see we have someone from the public. Sure.
Sorry, it's Christine Sullivan Whitaker. I'll start with, in reverse, what you just talked about. The deer management, I'm aware that whenever it was that the trustees some years ago had some resolution, I think I was at the meeting, but I just remember it, I don't know, you know, one can never find anything online about whatever's being discussed. And I gather you have something in here about hopefully having some of that information online. There was something on the agenda, I think. Somebody had it on about, I thought about having things on the agenda, but anyway. The point is that I understand that the companies, the Suffolk deer management people, obviously
Ma'am,
because
can you speak into the microphone? 'Cause I
obviously
can hardly
because
hear
of
you.
the proximity
Thank you.
that is in the center of the village, those of us that live on quarter of an acre are not going to be able to take part in any of this because the setbacks don't comply, which makes sense. I understand it because of proximity of humans and that kind of thing. But we have on Cameron Street and around the school and the Christian Science Church, and deer are all over these smaller properties right here in the middle of the center of the village. And so I don't know if there's some thought of possibly luring them anywhere other than this bow and arrow thing, some of them. And I thought Eduardo's point about the Bambis was well taken, you know, that what happens afterwards. But I'm just saying, it's like constant every night. I have 2 or 3 on my quarter of an acre, you know, just looking at me when I drive my car in the driveway. So it's not just, I can see that that's a start to do it that way. The other thing was I wanted to just be sure that that before any of these zoning changes happen, these overlays and anything, after the comprehensive master plan and your discussion and everybody's discussions, the public is really never allowed to say anything. I'm just commenting. I go to meetings because I feel like it's during the elections. Sometimes certain candidates would make me think I had to watch, but then I'd watch and I get so stressed. But then if I didn't watch, I'd be stressed because I didn't know what was going on. So I sort of feel that's the same way, that probably be criticized, but a lot of the trustee meetings, they have these resolutions. It's 81 pages, and that's the only way you know what might be voted on. There isn't sort of like online, a place that people can look up, actually, like the deer resolution. I was up in the building department asking Alex a question because I was concerned about, I saw your agenda, and I was just concerned about all this zoning being put in place without consideration for people's pre-existing residential zoning when you do these office overlay and all these workforce overlay. And I'm not against it, but it just seems like I'm aware of what happened on Hampton Road, and where then people can't replace anything. So that's all.
Well,
Thank
thank
you.
you. I think it's my understanding of overlay districts that doesn't impact the underlying zoning. It's it's a tool used to solve a problem that goes on top of the underlying zoning. Alex, I don't know if you want to comment on that.
Yeah, I don't know if an overlay is what's being proposed in either case,
Okay.
but that's right. An overlay goes on top of an existing district, applies to a specific area, and it can be more permissive or more restrictive. The problem it's trying to solve.
Right. Well, thank you for your comments, and I guess with that, I'll make a motion to adjourn our meeting until our next meeting on March 2nd. Any seconds?
A second?
Are all in favor?
Aye.
See you on March
Aye.
2nd.